Today's lesson, we're going to talk about the observer effect, watching your thoughts like a scientist. The context is you have a bad boss. Your bad boss sends another passive-aggressive email, and now your heart is racing. Your mind is spinning with comebacks, worst-case scenarios, and that familiar knot of anger and anxiety. But here's a skill that can change everything. What if instead of being swept up in those thoughts, you could watch them like a scientist observing data? Today, I'm going to teach you about the observer effect, and it might be the most powerful psychological tool that you will learn in this entire series. What is the observer effect? In quantum physics, the observer effect means that the act of observing something changes it. The same principle applies to your thoughts. When you're fully identified with your angry or anxious thoughts, they control you. But the moment you step back and observe them, something shifts. You create space between you and the emotion, and in that space, you find choice. So here's what it looks like in practice. Your boss criticizes your work unfairly in front of the team. The normal response is to get caught in the thought storm. I can't believe they did that. Everyone thinks I'm incompetent now. I hate this job. I should have said something. You're inside the hurricane. The observer approach is different. You notice, I'm having the thought that everyone thinks I'm incompetent. I'm feeling heat in my chest. My mind is generating comeback scenarios. Do you see the difference? You're not denying the thoughts or the emotions. You're just watching them instead of becoming them. Why this matters with having a bad boss? Bad bosses are essentially emotion factories generating stress, fear, anger, and frustration in the people around them constantly. If you react to every emotional trigger that they create, you're going to be exhausted and eventually you're going to break. But when you develop the ability to observe your reactions rather than be consumed by them, you stay in control of your internal state even when external circumstances become chaotic. Your boss cannot actually make you angry. What they can do is say or do things that trigger thoughts in your mind, which generate emotions in your body. But there's a gap in that chain, and the observer effect lets you live in that gap. When you observe the thought that my boss is disrespecting me, you can see it as a thought and not as an absolute truth. And you can choose how to respond rather than being carried away by reactive anger. This doesn't mean that you become passive or accept mistreatment. It means you respond strategically instead of emotionally. You start this by practicing small. The next time your bad boss does something or says something that bothers you, take a breath and mentally say, I'm noticing that I'm feeling frustrated. The I'm noticing part creates the observer perspective. You're not saying the frustration is wrong or trying to make it go away. You're just acknowledging that you're aware of it, and it automatically creates some distance. You can get more specific as you practice. I'm noticing tension in my shoulders. I'm noticing the urge to fire off an email right now. Each observation weakens the thought's grip on you. It's like you're a nature documentarian narrating your internal wild life. The angry thoughts are still there, but you're studying them rather than being attacked by them. The real power comes when you realize that observing your thoughts doesn't mean that you can't act on them. You can notice that you're angry and still set a boundary. You can observe anxiety about an upcoming public speaking event, and you can still ask for help. The difference is you're choosing your response from a place of awareness instead of being hijacked by that emotion. Over time, this practice builds a kind of psychological immunity to a bad boss's horrible behavior. They still happen, but they don't colonize your entire internal world anymore. The observer effect is a superpower for surviving a bad boss because it means no one can control your internal state without your permission. Your boss can control your workload or your schedule or maybe even your job security, but your thoughts and your reactions belong to you the moment you learn to observe them. If you start practicing this today, you will become good at it over time. When your boss triggers you, you can get curious instead of reactive. You can watch the thoughts arise like you're a scientist collecting data. You're not trying to be zen or unbothered. You're just creating enough space between the stimulus and response to remember that you have a choice, and that choice can be everything.